So hello, I'm Carolyn. I'm one of the archivists at the County Record Office, and today I'm going to try and make biscuit bread. This is a recipe from Isabella Fetherston, and it belongs in a collection of the Fetherston-Dilke family from Maxstoke Castle, and the recipe probably dates from the early 18th century. So one of the first things that I had to do was to try and transcribe the recipe, getting to grips with the paleography. I hope I've transcribed it correctly. We'll soon find out. So the first thing it's telling me to do is to take the whites of 9 eggs and the yolks of 5 and to beat them well. I've got free range hen's eggs here. I'm assuming they would have used hen's eggs back in the day. It'll take me a while to do all those separating of whites and yolks, so bear with me and I'll get cracking. So I'm just going to beat them well as instructed. So again, this might take some time, so I'll come back to you in a mo. Okay, I'm finding this a little bit confusing. Obviously I've got my separated eggs, and I imagine that the requirement for the extra egg white is to provide some sort of raising agent with it, and then the recipe just sort of refers to the eggs as them, so I'm guessing that I'll need to put the eggs together at this point. It says to put to them a pound of sugar, so what I've got here is some cane sugar, because I think that they would have used cane sugar at that particular time. I don't think beet sugar actually came into use until about the mid 18th century, which is a little bit later than this recipe. I have gone for fair trade cane sugar in this particular instance, and then also it calls for a pound of flour well dried in an oven. Now, on the basis that storage conditions at that time were probably not quite as ideal as they are now, I'm just going to take my flour straight out of the packet. I have gone for an organic wholemeal flour, as I think that's probably about the nearest product that we would have these days to the sort of flour that they would have used then. So what I'm going to do is measure them out and put them to the eggs, and I'm going to just lump everything together and hope for the best. Well, the sugar went in with what really quite an alarming thunk. So I've got my trusty sieve for the flour, because looking at the amount of flour, I will be amazed if I'll actually be able to stir this by the time the flour's gone in as well, but we will see. It's getting a bit serious now. I'm going to have to get my little footstool to stand on to give myself a little bit of height and elevation to be able to tackle this with a bit more gusto, I think. If I show you without wrecking my Surface Pro, this is what it's looking like at the minute. Not too promising really, but hey ho. Okay, so now we have rather a large mass of goo, I think. I was looking for something to grow out the patio with, so that might be ideal later if it's inedible. The next ingredient is rosewater. Now, one of the first recipes I tried from the Heritage series had rosewater in, and for something that sounds so nice, I hadn't realised that too much can actually take the back of your throat off. It just says 2 or 3 spoonfuls. Now obviously I don't know what size spoon they would have used then, whether it would have been a teaspoon size or whether it would have been somewhat larger. I've hedged my bets. I'm sort of going for soup spoon, and I hope this will be okay. We will find out. The next thing I need to do is to put in some caraway seeds. Doesn't say how many to use. They've got quite a earthy, aniseedy sort of smell. So I'm just going to tip or scatter, I suppose I would say scatter. Oh, actually, it says something about grating them. I'm not quite sure what that means. Perhaps it means to crush them first. But anyway, they're going in whole at the moment, so here we go. Let's see what happens. I have to say that the smell coming out of this bowl, yum is not the word that is springing to mind at the moment. Yeah, okay. The next thing is to butter my plates. I've actually only got one plate that I know will be okay in the oven, and this is one that my mum used to use to make apple pies. So I'm going to use that plate, and then for the rest I'm going to just put it on a non-stick baking tray, which again I've buttered as requested. The next thing to do is to put some fine sugar, or it says a scraping of fine sugar, so I take it that you would be working off a sugar cone to actually do that. So I'm just going to sieve some of the sugar over the top. I have to say I have tried the spoon, licking the spoon, as I always do when I'm baking, which doesn't happen very often, as you can probably gather, and it tastes better than it smells. So with a bit of luck, when it comes out of the oven, it might actually be edible. So the oven, it says it just requires 2 hours baking, so there's no temperature, as is quite normal with these heritage recipes. So on the basis that it's 2 hours baking, and on the basis of the amount of egg white in it, I'm going to go for a fairly low temperature. So I'm going to go for about 140 degrees C and just let them effectively harden in the oven. So a couple of hours time, we'll see what we've got. So it is now 2 hours later. The biscuit bread is out of the oven, and it looks quite interesting. You can tap it. It does sound quite biscuity, which I think tells me that it is done. And we'll just have a try and see what happens. It has the texture of a giant macaroon, and oh yeah, it does actually have a bit of a sort of bready texture and a crisp sort of macaroon type coating. So it's really quite strange. So I'll just try a bit. Quite frankly, that is quite weird. It's yeah, I think I have overdone the rosewater, not in the sense of a take the back of your throat out sense, but it is just a little bit overpowering. So perhaps one spoonful of the size that I used might have been better. That's quite chewy, so whether it's actually supposed to perhaps been in a bit longer, but then it is a bread, so it has got a bread texture. It's just got a bit of a crusty bit on top, so quite weird. I'll see what my husband thinks anyway. I'm sure he can't wait.